Hey everybody, my name is Alton and welcome back to Half Past Blog. Now recently I asked you what you wanted to know about the Q Timex Chronograph. I got all kinds of great questions about the fit and finish, how it wears, the dimensions, the movement, all that kind of stuff. So let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. Today I have for you 10 things that you want to know about the Q Timex Diver Chronograph. Q Evolution. The Q Diver Chronograph is the fourth major iteration of the wildly popular Q Timex quartz line, re-envisioned and re-released in early 2019. Back then it was a scalper's dream as Timex vastly underestimated watch enthusiast desire for a 38mm acrylic crystal Pepsi budget beauty. The 38mm quartz was followed up by a 40mm mechanical version. The case was exactly the same, but the bezel was 2mm wider and it got a lot thicker too. Recently, Timex released a quartz GMT variant of the original 38, this time swapping out the bracelet and adding a rubber strap variant. And this past week, Timex released the 40mm quartz diver chronograph powered by a Hattori Seiko YM12 quartz chronograph movement. Dimensions. As far as I can tell, the case for all four variants is exactly the same. Any gains in size are found at the bezel width and the overall depth. For me, the 38 was just a little too small, but the 40mm is a Goldilocks size. It's just right. Plus the shape of the painted steel bezel, as well as the visual presence of two chrono pushers, it adds a little bit more wrist presence for my larger 8.5-inch wrist. And yet, at only 46mm, lug to lug, even smaller wrists will find the Q Chronograph to be a pleasure to wear. Movement. The movement is a Seiko quartz chronograph with date and 3 subdials. It's got a 1/5 second sweeping center chronograph hand, a 24-hour subdial at 3, a 60-minute subdial at 6, and a small seconds at 9. There's a date at 4:30, which I personally don't mind, but I know that some of you are going to loathe. The start-stop chronograph pusher does not provide much in the way of a mechanical click when it's depressed. Nevertheless, it feels solid, and there's no mistaking that it's engaged. The bottom pusher is the reset button, and it does provide tactile feedback when depressed. And it also acts as a sort of pause button that when you push it a second time, it catches up to where it would have been if it had not been disengaged. I'm not sure how useful this is, but it's kind of neat to watch. In fact, I found myself doing this over and over again. The dial. The dial comes in either a so-called panda colorway on brown leather or a reverse panda colorway on black leather or bracelet. The dial's handsome with medium crisp printing and nicely applied markers. The large Q at 12 persistently draws your eye, and I think will be the most polarizing facet of this watch. Is it tacky? Is it charming? Well, that's going to be the debate. As for me, I think it is charming in a fun and quirky way. This is a $200 Timex. And while it evokes more expensive Swiss luxury watches, that big bold Q at 12 sort of says, we aren't here to overreach. We know our place. And that generously sized Q, much like the applied indices, is great at catching light. Take this chrono outside and watch it sparkle in the sun. That, alongside the many polished angles to the case, make this one come alive outdoors, or even under the office fluorescence. The subdials. Now the subdials are not really white. They are more of a parchment, not quite cream color. Under certain lighting, they can even display significant yellow undertones. And I think this adds to the charm of the watch. A crisp glacial white with blue undertones would not have been as pleasing to the eye. It would not have fit the retro styling quite as well. And while I often struggle to read chronograph subdials, I find this one actually pretty easy to read. So long as I have my bifocals on, of course. I just wish they'd used a movement without the useless 24-hour subdial, which I have completely ignored since I got the watch. Bracelet. This might be the only reason you clicked on this video. How does the bracelet wear? Does it pull hair? I'm happy to report that this bracelet is not a Wookiee's nightmare. The steel bracelet with quick release 18mm pins appears to be a solid link affair with brushed and polished surfaces. It utilizes simple but effective push pins for sizing and has one of the worst clasps in history. Like seriously, it's terrible. It's flimsy, it does not align without help, and it cannot be adjusted, which means that you can only size it up or down by removing a 6mm link. I've been wearing mine loose and floppy, which I prefer over tight and restricting, while what I actually prefer is a milled clasp with micro adjusts. Fit and finish. Some aspects of the fit and finish are quite well done. The polishing is nicely done, and the brushing, though a little coarse, is also evenly applied. The black dial is rich, and the applied markers are dynamically faceted. The signed crown is a welcomed detail, and the bezel is crisply painted. But all is not well in the fit and finish department. And really, this is my biggest complaint with the Q. First, there appears to be glue squishing out from under my 1 o'clock marker. Second, the acrylic crystal scratches just by breathing in the same room as the watch, which after time sort of lends a shabby appearance. Third, the transitions of the case are not very sharp. While taking close-up shots for Instagram or reviews such as this, you will begin to notice that the case has what I can only describe as micro dings in the sharp-angled top of the lugless lugs. Fourth, Timex needs to polish the sides of their hands. The polishing on top is decent, although not flawless, but the edges are rough. Not as bad as the Citizen Chrono I reviewed a couple weeks ago, but Timex can do better. Finally, this thing is a dust magnet. That isn't really a QC issue, as much as the inherent properties of acrylic, which clings to dust like Spider-Man to a skyscraper, and the fact that all the ledges and angles of the case and bezel are just wonderful surfaces for dust to call home make it a maddening Instagrammer's nightmare. Seriously, I spent more time dusting this thing than I did photographing it. Legibility. The Q Chrono is a pretty watch, but don't mistake it for a field watch or aviation timepiece with a sterile dial and oversized markers. While I don't find it difficult to read the time, and observing the 60-minute chronograph isn't hard to do either, the shiny nickel-colored hands are not in the same league in terms of readability as, say, a Hamilton Khaki Mechanical or an SKX Seiko Diver. And I'm okay with that. But all of this goes out the window after dark. I couldn't find out what kind of loom Timex is using, and it really doesn't matter. It is garbage. I shot a 5-minute video of the loom, but in this video, I will only show you the first 3 minutes, since after that, it completely disappears. So if you are a watch enthusiast with a raging loom addiction, then do not look at this diver chronograph. Diver, driver. And this brings me to the number 9 of 10. I think somebody messed up at Timex. Inside the box, you'll find a note informing you that this new Q is a diver chronograph. Meanwhile, every second of advertising clearly defines this as a race-inspired piece. I think somebody at Timex forgot an R when it came to print. And in my mind, this is the Q Timex driver chronograph. And everything Timex has published would seem to agree. Value. When I first opened the box, I would say that my reaction was underwhelming. It was sort of like, oh, okay. You can watch this unboxing if you feel like this video isn't already long enough, but my reaction was, it's okay. But then I started to wear it, and I didn't take it off. Over the last week, I've come to really, genuinely appreciate this quirky little chronograph. If Timex could add sapphire crystal, clean up the case finishing, add an adjustable clasp, I would call this the very best value watch that you can buy at a $200 price point. I'm located in Canada, where the Q Chrono is listed at $249 Canadian on leather and $269 on bracelet. I found a 20% off coupon, bringing the price down to $215.20 with free shipping. Add tax to that, and the grand total was $243.18 shipped to my door in about a week and a half. Now that is a good value in my book. Can you find a better deal on AliExpress? You betcha. The Pagani Tudor clone I recently reviewed was not even half the price of this. Even the Citizen Chrono I mentioned earlier was only $200 shipped from Amazon Japan, albeit on sale and with a friend's help getting it to the Great White North. But out of the three, I'd choose the Timex. Why? Well, value isn't everything. And sometimes the better watch is not necessarily the most fun to wear. And this Q driver is fun. Yes, it evokes Rolex, Omega, and even Seiko chronographs of the past and present, but it has a uniquely Timex flair that doesn't take itself too seriously. I mean, who else but Timex would slap a 3mm Q at 12 and say, they're gonna love it? The whole point of Timex is that these watches are not to be handed down from generation to generation like an expensive mechanical luxury watch. They are meant to be functional, fiscally frugal, and above all, fun. And for a collector like me, if a watch can bring a smile to my face while also managing to tell the time accurately and look good doing it, well, to me, that's 243 Canadian loonies well spent. I'd love to know what you think of this Timex Q chronograph. Would you let me know in the comments down below? Do you love it? Do you hate it? How do you feel about the crystal? How do you feel about that giant Q at the 12? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And also, I'd like to thank you for watching. Have yourselves a great day.